Now these two teacups are a nice design. I really like the way they were made. I know I made them, shut up. Hello you dirty potters, how are you today? Today we're going to be doing a kiln opening video, a very simple video where we open up my kiln and we see what we got inside there for the week. We go through the good pile, we go through the bad pile, and we go ahead and explain what we did to these things to get these colors inside the kiln. And I tell you what, we got some good colors in there, boy. What took our jam? These are actually too hot to get out of the kiln right now, so I'm gonna try and swag these out. Come on. Yeah, got one. And I think you guys know how this works by now. We put stuff in a bad pile, we put stuff in a good pile, and then we put stuff in the I might keep it but I'm probably gonna smash it pile. Oh, this is my favorite mug. I just really need coffee right now. Let's start off with this jar right here. I was actually really excited for this jar. I didn't even trim the bottom. This is a bean mixed with grog clay, and I really felt good throwing this. I liked it a lot. And so I dipped the whole thing in Tenmoku gold, because I didn't know what happens with bean mixed with grog on a Tenmoku gold base. And it turns out, just like half of the other things that aren't real porcelain, it just turns brown. The one thing that I'm confused about is that on the other side, it actually came out Tenmoku gold like it's supposed to. And I don't really know. I think maybe there's just a little bit more heat and protection when it's on the kiln shelf like this. I'm not really sure. If anybody can tell me in the comments below why that happened. It's still one of the mysteries of my Tenmoku gold, because the recipe's fine. The recipe seems to be working on this side and on the inside of most of my cups and bowls. But on the outside, it just kind of burns everything away. And this portion here is a little bit of glass work I had done inside the lid. I like to make jars and then put them over the edge of the actual piece itself so you can still grab them off, but that way I don't have to make a decorative lid or any type of knot. You can just simply grab them like this and it's all good.
But Dante, you like to show us the worst things first and then ramp up. Why are you showing us this thing first? It looks so good. Shut the fuck, shush.
The reason that I'm showing you guys this one first instead of higher on the list is because I tried my favorite pink glaze on top of my Tenmoku gold. And yeah, it morphed it a little bit, but you can see it totally pitted the rest of the clay body. Look, this is not even an attractive color to go over this. This was more of an experiment that I tried with this jar, and I heavily dislike it. I might try and refire this maybe one time, but I'm really afraid the glass on this part of it is gonna run over because it already kind of has on the lid. But these pits are just unacceptable. I might just put this part back in the kiln. We'll try and refire this one more time with a clear glaze. See if we can kind of flux half of that stuff off and let it melt away, but this is really just kind of like a failure with those pits there. Otherwise, it would have just been a brown jar, and I still would have been unhappy with it because I don't like the color brown. This one here is kind of the same thing, except for instead of Tenmoku gold, I use Ron Roy's High Gloss Black. And my Ron Roy's High Gloss Black has been acting correct recently. It usually turns a little bit light brown, but if you put a thick enough layer, it turns straight black. This is the variation number 1. And you do have to remember that Ron Roy's High Gloss Black is pretty much a combination of red iron oxide and cobalt carbonate. There's no such thing as the color black in real life. It's just a combination of other colors that make it look like black to the human eye. So whenever you make this glaze, it's pretty much cobalt, which is blue, and then red iron oxide, which is really, really red. I'm definitely going to be reglazing this. The one issue that I had with this is that I tried to accentuate it with a glaze right in the middle. It might have been pink, it might not have been pink, don't judge me, but it was totally pink. It was pink. I even had a little swoosh right here just to accentuate it. It turned out good as far as the design goes, and I even made this little lid for it, and the lid also had glass in it just like the last piece. So this is really beautiful. I like this top. This top came out really, really nice and correct. I mean, look at that glaze line right there. It just came out perfect. Right, and the top came out really, really nice. I might even make a separate jar just for this top. But as far as the body goes, I mean, it's really just brown on brown. We're gonna put you in the maybe pile. Now let's talk about this bowl. Some of you might be familiar with this glaze, and this glaze is my floating blue. For some strange reason, it seems to work a little bit better on the bean mixed with grog than it does my porcelain clays. I don't know why, but I seem to be having really good luck with it on my bean mixed with grog.
But Dante, This bowl looks really nice. Why are you showing it to us?
Well, if you just gave it 3 seconds, Suzanne, I would show you the backside where it crawled. Now, I usually wouldn't show you guys this bowl because I would simply reglaze it in the same glaze and hopefully it sticks and fills in those crawls. But this actually is the refire. This is the second time I've done this. And I don't like to give my pots more than 2 chances, so this is most likely either gonna go in my cabinet because this blue is really nice. This is a really beautiful blue. This is what a true floating blue should look like in my opinion. But I just simply can't give this out to anybody, any of my patrons or anything like that, knowing that it's crawled like this. So this is most likely gonna go inside the pile of things that I just weren't good enough to save, but also weren't good enough to throw away. We're probably gonna save this for a very special episode. Some of the OGs of the channel might remember that kind of stuff. Let's talk about these 2 teacups right here. Now these 2 teacups are a nice design. I really like the way they were made. I know I made them, shut up. And the outside came out nice and shiny, but again it is a brown. The reason it came out this way is because this again is my Tenmoku gold. And if you look on the inside of the cup, it has beautiful, beautiful tea dust and gold specks. I really, really like the inside of this. It's gorgeous, right? But the outside just came out brown again. Like why does this keep happening? I'm not sure why all the tea dust specks are burning off, and if you can barely see a little bit on the texture right there. You can barely see a little bit of tea dust on the texture right there, but the inside is where you can really see that magic happen, right? So I want this, but I want this on the outside of my actual products. Again, this is the bean mixed with grog, so this isn't really extra special or anything. I expected this to happen seeing as it doesn't have a porcelain clay body. So this usually happens on non-porcelain clay bodies with my Tenmoku gold. But the same exact thing happened with this right here. This came out nice and shiny on the outside, but then on the inside it came out really nice and Tenmoku gold beautiful. And I'm not sure why this is happening. Hopefully somebody in the comments below can help me. The thing that really gets me is that this is actually the second fire for both of these cups. The inside was completely unchanged. But as far as the outside goes, the place where I put a clear gloss over it to make it a little more runny so you can see the Tenmoku gold, dolomite, and lithium specs a little bit more, it didn't do anything. It did absolutely nothing. I've never put in a cup to the kiln and it did literally nothing to it. And that's one of the reasons why this is in the neutral spot. There's nothing that can be really done with these at this moment. I especially don't like this one because this one's big and clunky and kind of heavy, but I really like this one. This one, if it had a better color on it, would have been way better. This almost looks like a tiny little Japanese tea bowl, to be honest with you. It's not, but it has that same formation with the angled in inside. If I would have just left some glaze off on the bottom, and the foot's nice. I really like this piece. You know what? I changed my mind. I'm actually gonna keep this piece for myself. This is gonna be a teacup. Bet on 69 half black, please. These are actually prototype coasters I've been working with. I've been working with glass a lot more recently, and I simply wanted to make some little discs with a little bit of glass inside of it and a little bit of glaze, so that way I can make these kind of coasters for my house. I actually learned how to do this technique from another YouTuber called John the Potter. I will link his channel down below if you want to see him. Shout out to John the Potter. Yo, tell him Donte sent you. Freak him out a little bit. This is one of those techniques that most potters know how to do, and in fact, before I saw John's video, I already knew how to do this. But it's one of those things that kind of stays in the back of your mind, like, oh yeah, that's right. Glass melts in a kiln, and if you put it inside of a bowl or something that will catch that glaze, it automatically comes out like this. Working with glass actually isn't that hard, but these specifically cannot be eaten off of. They're not food safe. So what you have to do is you have to put them on stuff that's not going to be eaten off of in the first place, much like these coasters here. This is probably about my second time working with glass inside of a kiln other than the ones that you saw earlier. I did it about 2 or 3 years ago at Alpha Fired Arts in Sacramento. But these are really easy to make. The one thing that I dislike about these is that I used wax resist on the bottom because I got lazy, and the glaze line came out awful. I did a horrible job at making the glaze line. Next time I'll most likely just stilt these, or I'll be better with my wax resist. And I don't usually use wax resist, so my glaze line came out horrible. This is an awful glaze line. I will most likely be keeping these for myself or giving them out to patrons or friends and family, but this is not acceptable for work. This is completely unacceptable to me. So I'll most likely just show you the beautiful parts of these and then pretend like I didn't mess it up. My favorite one is this one right here because it has this really nice border white crackled outline to it, but it also has this part right here that almost dripped off the kiln shelf, and this is one of those rare occasions. This is one of those things that was a beautiful moment that almost became trouble for me. So I really like this one right here. This one's gonna go in a special place in my house most likely. I like this a lot. But for now, they're pretty much just really expensive poker chips. And this one right here came out extra good too. This kind of looks like a little waterfall going on. But I mostly used pink, blue, and white glass inside here. So you can see the two blues are right here and the two whites are right here. And one kind of fell into the other one. The one key with this is that you have to make sure you don't put too much glass or else it'll drip over.
Please, Donte, don't break the ones you dislike. Give them to me.
Man, you know what high-pitched voice inside of Donte's head that I'm afraid to gender or give a name because I'm afraid of misgendering people in a society where people attack people all the time on Tumblr? I am tired of your junk this episode. These are gonna go inside the accidentally good pile. There were two things that I was really happy with in this kiln load, and this is one of them. This is a gourd made with bee mix with grog, and this is my new blue that I kind of accidentally made. I made a recipe called Jeff Campana's Gray, and I accidentally put like 1,000% more cobalt carbonate in there than it should be. So this should have been a really, really light blue, bordering on gray. But instead, it turned out massively clear blue. You can still see through to the clay body. You can still even see my finger lines right there. But I like this a lot because this is my Ron Royce High Gloss Black on top of it. And it ended up making this kind of oil spot glaze with blue inside of it. I bet if I put this pooled inside of a bowl, this would look fantastic. I simply dipped the entire thing in that messed up Jeff Campana's Gray, and then I got a Ron Royce High Gloss Black, put it at an angle, and just dipped it in there, right like that. And this was the end result of it. And you can see right there that looks like a pit, but it's not. That's actually just the color pulling inside of a tiny little spot inside the glaze body. And this is what really interests me because this is basically a birthmark. This is an entirely new color that's a combination of these two colors combined. I technically tried to make a design right here just like that. I put a little whoosh of Ron Royce High Gloss Black on top of this, and it didn't work out that well. It didn't turn that color at all. But for some strange reason, it birthmarked itself right there, and I'm really happy with it. Everyone likes to see those Japanese double gourds with a really nice mouth on them, and if I had a rope, I'd probably tie it around and pretend to drink sake out of it, even though it's just gonna be tea because I don't really drink that much. And this clearish type of combination of black is working for me as well. Now I know that I can mix my Ron Royce High Gloss Black with this messed up version of Jeff Campana's Gray, keep it in my notes, and now I can have this variation of glaze anytime I want. And that's the beauty of these kind of mess ups. Okay, you guys ready? Because this is the final thing that came out of the kiln. I was really, really happy with it, and I like it a lot. I might, in fact, send this off to a patron who commissioned a jar for me quite some time ago. I might send him 2 jars just because I like them like that. I am so pumped! I am extremely excited to show you guys this jar right here. This, again, from the last piece that I showed you, is Jeff Campana's Gray, except for it has 1,000% more cobalt carbonate inside of it. So that's why you're getting this really good see-through version of that. I'm really in love with this glaze, even though I messed it up. And it's actually on bee mix with grog, which tells me a lot. What happens when I put this on an actual porcelain clay body is my question. This will most likely look a lot more delicious. And it's a lidded piece with that glass inside of it on the top. I am massively in love with this one. I tried to rim it a little bit, if you can kind of see it right there, with a little bit of a different color, specifically so that I can give it some variation, and it seemed to work in the slightest bit. You can tell there's some here, you can tell there's some right here, but there's not one of those lines right here. And there's a little bit way down here, but you can see here and here on basically every other step, there's not that accentuation. I am really in love with this glaze right now. This glaze, even though it technically is a failure, is working very, very well for me. This is coming out very nice. And if you look at the very top of it, I even put blue glass on the inside of it so that it could match the rest of the clay body. This came out perfect. I don't think there's anything really wrong with this. There's one thing that kind of bothers me about it, and it's that the lid was actually made a little too tight, so it's actually hard to get the lid off whenever you put it on. But that's about it. There's nothing wrong with having a lid that fits a little too well. And that's kind of why I wanted to give this to the person that commissioned it to me, because this is a very well-made jar. I usually don't make giant batches of number 1 mess up glazes and number 2 glaze them to test them out. What I usually do is I just kind of waste it on textiles, but this turned out to be the one that came out really nice. And if you can kind of see it, I put some little ridges on the inside of the lid too, so that way it can kind of pull this glaze inside of those ridges. This is technically all one glaze. The only difference is I allowed it to have texture and pull inside these little lines right here, so it played inside there and became a little bit darker blue. And the inside doesn't look too bad either. The inside has a really nice glaze line. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me. I mean, to be honest with you, I do this stuff and I go over my pieces when I get out of the kiln anyway. The only difference is I want you guys to join me while I do it. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. If you'd like to see any more of my artwork, the links are always down below for your beautiful Potter eyes to see. And please go check out John the Potter's channel. He has no idea who I am, but please tell him that Earth Nation sent you anyway so he can be ultimately confused. And I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week.
Donte, maybe you should lay off the coffee.
You don't tell me how to live my life.